Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good week. This week is all about distortion in Photoshop, and we are week 24 or week 2 of season 2, depending what you like better. Okay, let's start with something interesting because today the image first will be an image of a burned church in Lisbon. I took the photo with my 5D Mark III with my fish eyes, and that caused tons of distortions. Okay, let's start with. I'll show you first the story about that church, and the reason I really like that church, because I had that kind of feeling when I walked in it. It's all burnt. The walls, the stone walls, or their burned part is open. You can see that the church suffered a lot. They rebuilt it. It completely burned, and they had just the stone wall that stayed. And what they did is they didn't stop the mass. Without the roof, without the other wall, they just continued the mass every week. And they rebuilt the church, and they let the stone wall exposed. And it's kind of a funny feeling when you walk into it. What they say here, it's the Saint Domingo's Church, Igreja São Domingos. And they said that is, I don't say it's that bad. It's a strange church. It's not that creepy either. That's not the way I felt it. With ringed sections of old fire damage that damaged the church, letting out from the walls, hitting the small alcove, are gruesome and disturbing. That's not what I had as a feeling. For me, that church was one of the one that I liked the best. I had that feeling of faith that people had to go to the church even with a burned church, and it's always full of people. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. For me, I feel that's a lot to offer. Anyway, this is my story about that church. Let's begin by opening the image. Okay. And we'll open it in RAW because, like I said, you're always better to take picture in a RAW format because you have more information in the files. Okay. First thing to do, remove chromatic aberration and enable profile correction. I did not a bad job. Okay, let's go to the color correction. Okay, the white balance. You can use your picker if you want. And because I knew that the wall are gray, it does a good job. Or you can go auto and see what that does. It's pretty similar. I prefer mine, but that's okay. It's more blue. Here I'll just go auto because we'll go back to the Photoshop, to the raw filter later on. But it does a very good job for this. And look at that church. It's not creepy at all. It just had the feeling that a lot happened there. Okay, open image. We'll go to layer, duplicate layer. Okay. If you don't do that, you cannot use transform. You go under edit, transform, perspective, and you try to make it look good. Adjust the line a little bit and see if you can put the things straight. You have to be careful because if you move too much, it doesn't follow the real size of it. That's why you have to be very careful. And don't forget that with this, you're bending the pixel. And if you bend too much, you'll destroy your image. Okay, that's enough for me for perspective. Okay, you go to the check mark. One thing done. Layers. And I do that this way because I find it is faster and easier. Again, layer, duplicate layer, okay. and edit, and this time we'll go on transform, but we'll go on distort. And distort is a powerful tool, and you have to be very careful, because when it's powerful, that means you can bend the pixels a lot, and that can destroy your image. I'll give you an example. I can bend it like that, I can do it like that, I can play with this, and it's powerful. Be careful. Okay, I want to make it straight. Okay, you can bring that this way, that way, that's this way. But look, this is straight, but look at that. That doesn't work at all for me. So I have to bring this down to make it looks straight in the back. Because you have to decide which line you will follow. Prefer to go and by the look of it, if it's looked like it looks when I was there. And I can take hours to do that, and it's just an example. I don't want to pass an hour to show you how to do this kind of things, but I just look at this part right now. Okay, layer, flatten image. What do I want to do with this now? I'm going to use one of the most powerful filter that is in Photoshop. But first, layers, duplicate layers, filter, and this time we'll go to camera raw filter. I'm happy with the white balance, and I want a little bit more exposure. I'll just go a little bit less contrast, a little bit less highlight, and a bit more open shadows. That's pretty good for me. And we'll go down here. Don't overdo it on clarity either, because if you overdo it, it's just too crunchy. You have to be careful. Okay, the A's, I don't really like this, but I'm just using +1 to just make sure that I have some detail in the back. And I like vibrance. I'll put some vibrance, probably 6. Saturation, normally if I put 6 vibrance, I'll put -6 saturation. I'm not very crazy about saturation. Something I'm working on right now. See, that didn't change too much thing, but I like it better. You can look at the detail too. It's pretty good. Like it's, it was done with the 5D, and we'll look at the file. If you want to know what was done, you go to File, File Info. And you can see it's a Canon 5D Mark III, 15mm, that's the fisheyes, 1/40 of a second, f2.8 because it was very dark. I will love to have, if I had a tripod at least, I could have boosted that to 5.6 or something like that, but ISO 800 manual. Okay, one thing that I like to do is to add some vignette, and my burning and my dodging on Photoshop is done with curve. I start working with curve, and now I'm so used to it that that's all I use. Darker, and I'll show you something that I do a lot darker. Okay, I go to my mask and I invert it. That way you don't see it. And I use a big brush, very big. Soft and big. Okay, 1400. And I'll go to probably 30–40% and just add a little bit of darkness in it. They said it's a creepy church, we'll add some darkness. And here, it's not creepy, it's just beautiful. A little bit of here, a little bit there. And you can just take it out, take it down. It just gets the viewer attention where you want. And that's my burning and dodging thing. Okay, now that I'm done this, now if I want to do some dodging, merge down and go for another curve, and this time we'll go lighter. Same thing, we'll use our mask, we'll invert it. That way I'm always on the white. That's why I'm doing this. This is easier for me. It's faster. Okay, if I want to put some light into some space here and maybe some space here, just to make it a little bit better. A bit more here, a bit more here. We bring people to the back. Okay, let's see, layers, merge down. Okay, if we go from the beginning, it just had to it. It's not perfect, but it just had to it. Okay, and now if we want to add something to it, okay, let's see, we want to have a frame around it. You go to Image, Canvas Size. And I don't use pixel for that because I prefer the inches. It's easier. Okay, I will add 1 inches to the width and 1 to the height. Okay, we'll go 20.2 and 13.8. We'll do a black frame because apparently it's a creepy church. Okay. Pretty nice. See, with the frame, even if it's a little bit crooked, it looks pretty cool. Okay, now what can we do with this? Let's try black and white, but from Photoshop, because you have a lot of different programs that have black and white. They all have a preset. Photoshop too. You have blue filter, green filters, infrared, that's pretty good. You can use tint if you want. Ooh, that's make it creepy though. And you can change the color of your tint as you want. I like that better. You can play with the slider. See, you have a lot of red. You can make it darker, lighter, depending of the sensibility of the color and the color in your image. You can play with that. It has quite a bit of yellow. Green, I don't think we have a lot of green there. Science, yeah, pretty good. Mostly in the shadows. The blue and the cyan are mostly in the shadow. Ooh, that make it for more creepy that way. And magenta, and you can play with that. Okay, well, let's see it this way. Maybe a little less than that. Maybe darker there. That's okay. Now we'll add. Why not adding a frame to it? Layer, merge down. Image, canvas size. We'll go for a color inside of this. Let's take our picker and pick a dark part of it. We'll even make it darker. I just want to have some brownish in it, but not too much. Okay, we'll go in inches. 13.8 and 20.2. 20.2. And we'll just do OK. And voila. This is done. It's not perfect, but that gives you an idea of how to do it. Like I said, normally I will take a lot longer to do this kind of picture, a lot more burning and dodging, but that gives you an idea of how I do it. Okay, that's enough for this week. Next week will be all about selfies. We'll start with the equipment and we'll follow with the process of doing it. And maybe a little bit of Photoshop of how to play with your selfies to make it more creative. Till then, keep shooting, have fun. If you have any question, don't hesitate to write to me. And please subscribe. Have a good week. Ciao. Enjoy your day and ciao, ciao.
¡Eso, Diane!